Thanks everyone for joining today for our first session of our latest webinar series, where we'll be talking all things AI and how to bring AI into your business. We're here to debunk any misconceptions that you may have that are out there, and we will answer all of your burning questions at the end. So make sure to put all of your questions into the Q&A box there, and I will get to them at the end. But firstly, what we'll be covering today is the evolving AI landscape, where it started, where it's currently at, and where it's going. So we will cover what it means to implement AI into your business and what that looks like in various industries. And we'll talk about our own journey with AI and building PIES Studio with a live walkthrough of what AI-driven development actually looks like. And of course, then we'll cover immediate actions for you to take to get you started on your own AI journey too. So with that, I'm delighted to introduce our guest speakers today. Firstly, we have Stephen Anthony, Chief AI Officer at Zetaris, Wayne Spencer, our very own CEO at PIES Studio, and of course, Simon, our CTO at PIES Studio. They all have a huge wealth of knowledge and experience in the industry and have been on the AI train since the very beginning. So are true experts in the field. So you're in very good hands here. So with that, please take it away, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you, Ollie. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I thought I'd start the webinar with just a glimpse of what we're seeing in the market currently. So we at Zetaris perform a lot of different projects in different industries. So the platform itself is a data governance, data management, data preparation, and data unification studio. So it brings together all your data from disparate sources into the single plane, single management plane, a single view. And we're industry agnostic. So we work with customers in healthcare, defense, retail, manufacturing, telecommunications, and many more. So they really do see a wide variety of different use cases across different sectors. And one of the things that always strikes me is, it continually strikes me and never ceases to amaze me, is just the adoption, the growth that we're seeing in the uptake of AI. And as you know, it's everywhere. So, it's gone from the lab into the corporate sector and now into the physical realm. So we're seeing robots that are, undertaking security duties, delivering plates and dishes in restaurants. It's absolutely taken the world by storm. So, which is wonderful. But it does come with some obvious caveats and risks that we should be aware of. So that's really setting up for what Zetaris does and how we manage all of that data, how we prepare it and ensure it's reliable, accurate, current, and trustworthy. And then we'll talk about how we work together with PIES to implement and deliver and continuously keep these solutions up to date. So just my first sort of point that struck me was that ChatGPT has actually risen to 400 million active users a week. That's 1 billion queries a day. And that's just staggering. That's phenomenal. As you can see from the curve here, the adoption rates and the growth in the market, again, phenomenal. From 35% in 2021, just a few years, short 4 years ago, to 72% roughly now. So that's your staggering growth. And a fun fact down the bottom, we have projections of the AI market reaching almost $400 billion next year, and over, I think it's 1.7 trillion by 2030. So that's a 30% annual growth rate, which is absolutely phenomenal. So there's no signs of the easing in the AI market. So I think that's a given. If we go on to the next slide, we'll just quickly touch upon how AI is shaping up across different industries. So there's some common use cases here that we're all familiar with. So AI in healthcare, for example, can help diagnose diseases. Personalized treatment plans are really, hyper personalized AI or machine learning can help really with individual ailments and be very, very much targeted in terms of the individual. And that's all leading to preventative healthcare. So we're seeing a real convergence, and that will be a common theme in the next few slides. The convergence of all these technologies coming together, and also across industries. So businesses are now able to do more with less. They're able to, like converge across industries. So banks that are also investing in hospitals or corporate wellness programs, hospitals that are also now integrating data from wearable devices. So it's not only is it sort of what's called perioperative care, so pre-operative and post-operative care, it's actually goes well beyond that. So doctors can now have at their fingertips information from the patient's medical records and wearables from IoT devices as well. So we have that really fine-grained full picture of the patient's health habits, because we know it's not just the genome that tells us what a patient may be what diseases may be expected in a patient's lifetime, but it's also their lifestyle. So lifestyle has a big impact on how doctors and clinicians can treat patients and help patients prevent diseases early. So that's a big area. Obviously, we'll see a lot. Simon will talk a lot about software development and how AI is radically changing the software development landscape, and everything from code generation and automated testing and security, from no code, low code, and pro code perspectives. Finance, we do a lot of work in finance. So in terms of financial crime, building models to detect money laundering, credit checks, even customer service is a big area where AI is really well positioned to help streamline operations. And then obviously marketing, we're all familiar with how generative AI can help generate content, really target audiences, assist users, so enhance that customer experience. So we might move on to the next slide. Just drilling into the governance aspect. Excuse me. So for example, we've done some really nice work with PIES, building in healthcare, building tools, for instance, for emergency departments in large hospitals, where AI can help triage patients. So they bring together large volumes of data in a private setting. So this is on-prem, bringing in large language models privately into the hospital's environment. So it's all private, no data leaves the organization. And then clinicians, in this case, triage nurses, have real-time access at their fingertips, and that helps diagnose the patient, helps with the decisioning, with all the patient information from the hospital record, from the pathology system, from the imaging system, radiology, etc., all comes together at once, because we really can't afford, if it's a stroke or some sort of serious condition like a heart attack, we can't afford to pause the diagnosis and wait to bring data together, transform the data, and then make decisions. So all of this has to happen in real time. Very, very similar situation with finance, and Simon will show us how quickly and easily we can automatically build an alerting application in the financial domain. Predictive policing is another area which I just wanted to touch upon briefly, because we've done some pretty impressive work in that area. Again, the kind of convergence, bringing together data from body worn cameras, so body cams, plus all sorts of records data about persons of interest into the single point for people on the ground to make decisions is revolutionizing policing and intelligence. And that sort of leads us to, well, um, the whole concern around reliability of your data, explainability, transparency. So how can we trust what the applications, what the models are deciding, whether it's rejecting a loan application or approving for that matter, whether it's, designating a person as a violent offender or dangerous, or safe for that matter. So you really have to have full, complete trust in your models. So how do we do that? Well, that's through ensuring that our data is well governed. And in the next slides, I'll just drill deeper into how we do that. One of the aspects is testing, of course, and Simon will touch upon some of the automated testing that's built in to the PIES platform that can detect things like outliers and edge cases, etc., but that use adversarial techniques to continuously test and make recommendations of how we can improve the data and the code. So with all that being said, the sort of the unification or bringing together a platform like Zetaris, which tightly governs your data, ensures high data quality, it ensures that it's the most up-to-date versions of the data, all accessed in real time with a application like PIES Studio. It really does make give organizations the ability to create these applications, trustworthy applications, much easier. So in this case, the use case is a healthcare scenario where, for example, the cardiac risk decisioning system that we've built. And as we know, it's not just about the data, it's not just about the technology, but it's how the technology helps the people and the processes that are in place. So, we're not just, as we say here, we're not just building smarter tools, more intelligent tools, we're building a smarter system of care, and that has to be across the whole organization. And you have to consider the data governance and the framework that you have around the data governance fundamentally as the first step. So if we move on to the next platform, next slide. So where are we headed really? Real-time autonomous data-driven systems. So we've really moved from a sort of compute once, read many paradigm where we would, in the past, create code, write code that analyzes data, create code that writes an application or executes an application, and then we would go off and use that application or use that data by retrieving it in many times. But now it's shifted towards a very much a generative paradigm where we're leaning on language models or generative models to generate code dynamically in real time, given the right context. But how do you know the context is correct? So that's what we are all really dealing with at the moment, is how do we ensure that our data is trustworthy, it's safe, and the model's outputs aren't drifting, they're not biased. And how do we explain their outputs? Because we moved from AI being used as a kind of for business intelligence, creating, let's say, reports and dashboards, which aren't that critical. Like they may help guide decisions, but they're not making the decisions. So now we're actually moving into this phase where AI applications are making decisions in real time. They are dealing with customers pretty much directly. So we need to absolutely ensure that these models are trusted and they're well governed. So I'll just say, I'll just sort of read this quote here about, if the model is the brain, then the data is the bloodstream. And if the blood is contaminated, everything fails. It's so true, because really, if we're feeding a model with data that's not fair, accurate, and balanced, then we get unfair, inaccurate, and unbalanced results out. So, how do we prevent that? So the next slide, which is our platform architecture slide, really demonstrates how we transform and manage the data. So from the bottom layer, we have many data sources, whether it's a hospital, which you can imagine on average, a hospital will have 15 different systems, whether they're clinical systems or administrative systems. They're often, siloed. Other data sets are created off those systems. And you end up with one big soup. But the Zataris layer in the middle really unifies all of that access to the data. So it eliminates point-to-point integration for a start, but it actually harmonizes and unifies the data. So as we see here, the Zataris platform, as does PIES, deploys either on-prem, in the cloud, or in a hybrid deployment mode. And what you're creating is a real-time, unified enterprise lakehouse. So one single source of truth where all your applications are integrated with, instead of that point-to-point mess that you often end up with. So the platform itself has integration capabilities, 5 integration styles. So everything from batch, ETL, ELT, streaming, API, and messaging. So then there's pipelines, so real-time pipelines, including language models, prompting multiple models, whether they're private, closed source, open source, on-prem, off-prem, so I should say in the cloud, and scheduling and automation, fine-grained data governance, and obviously built on a Spark engine, which is your de facto standard for big data processing and large analytical workloads. So then just quickly, because what we're seeing, another aspect of AI in the industry now is not only agentic computing, agentic AI, but multi-agent collaboration, ambient AI, physical AI, and this all has to be governed. So as I've alluded to many times already, each model itself needs its guardrails, and then the enterprise needs its overarching framework and guardrails as well. So that's what Zataris provides. And we coupled very closely with PIES Studio through JDBC, ODBC, and API integration. So that's how we can guarantee and or give assurance around the quality, integrity, and transparency of our data and models together. So just moving on to the next slide. So I think my last slide, just sort of to sum up the impact really of where I see AI, the largest impacts that AI can make. And really it is automation. It's all around automation, automating repetitive tasks, and really helping not only customers, but also staff, helping with the engagement of customers and staff, because if you can eliminate a lot of that repetition, then really they can focus on higher order tasks and more meaningful tasks, more creative tasks. Enhanced security and risk management. So as I mentioned, a lot of the techniques we have available now, like adversarial techniques, can really come up with their own scenarios, their own rules to test, and autonomously and continuously test for any of those gaps or omissions that people may miss. So data-driven decision-making is what it's really all about. It's an obvious one, but this is where the AI is really showing the greatest impact at the moment. So just being an assistant, just helping make those decisions faster and more consistently. So, uh, yeah, obviously, I've already touched upon the optimization in operations and lower costs, so you can do more with less. And I'm not sure. I think that's the end of my section. I don't know if I have another slide, Holly.
Perfect. No, it's on
That's
to
already.
yeah, but thank you so much, Stephen. That was great, so informative and everything. So thank you very much. And we'll move on to you next, Wayne, and your experience in the industry and why you decided to go for AI in the first place.
Okay, thanks, Ollie. Thanks, Stephen. And thank you for everybody who's joined. And really appreciate you carving out some time in your busy lives. So good bit of just a quick, brief history, because I think the most important thing is for Simon to go through the platform itself, but just a brief history for us. We started off as a, typical services / software company. Then we started to see what was going on in the market, and the first decision we made was to sort of incorporate the concept of low code into our software development. But as we saw the market changing as well at the same time, we recognized there's a whole movement around no code and pro code being the ability to export the code, build something, export the code, and then enhance it yourselves. And then also AI, and where AI was starting to be more central in all of those things. That was our first iteration, as I said, low code. Then in 2019, we made a decision to make a big investment into building out a platform that incorporated no code for speed, low code for flexibility, because no code platforms tend to be a bit constrained by the number of widgets. What we did, we incorporated the ability for developers to go and build their own widgets and utilize them for maybe their particular business processes, particular IP they have. And then finally, we incorporated pro code. And the reason we did that was because lots of conversations with customers was really around people getting a bit tired of losing control of their IP, going onto these SaaS platforms, and it's a bit of a black box. You go and drag and drop, you build something, but you don't get access to the code. So we wanted to challenge that scenario by saying, you can use the platform, build out the application you want, and then you can retain that IP by extracting the code, put it into your environment, compile it, etc. But front and center of our design thinking, well, when I say our design thinking, it's more Simon's the bright one in our company. It was really around AI. How do we incorporate AI, right? So what we did was make sure that we had an end-to-end platform framework, if you like, that then enabled AI to bring in that automation around software development. And that's where we sort of are today, okay? But one of the things we noticed, and one of the things we saw, was obviously the acceleration, improvement in productivity. It's something like from 4x, with our low code, it was 4x, and now it's up to around 10x. But one of the things we also realized was we'd focused on that development, just as the development life cycle, when software development life cycles is far more than that. You've got your requirements, your business analysts, your solution designs, your testing, your operations when you run the application. And so we've gone down the path now of building agentic AI. So, because we wanted to compress and speed up and improve the productivity around that whole software development life cycle. And we're now working in collaboration with IBM on the first cab off the rank for us is a BA bot or BA agent. And the concept there is you can automate a lot of the requirements gathering and production of the documentation that enterprise typically require. And then once we've done that, we'll move on to what we call the PIES Archangel, which is the agent, sorry, not angel, which is really around the solution design, documentation, and pulling all that together. So that's really where today we have all of the automation around AI for this software development, but we're extending that across the whole life cycle. So that's really it. And I think, the best thing is now for Simon to just show what we're doing and show it in action. So over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Wayne. Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm going to show you how you can seamlessly integrate AI into your development workflow using PIES Studio. So PIES Studio, a modern AI-powered development platform designed to boost all your software development up to 10 times. Now, when I say AI in development, I'm just not talking about copying a code snippet from an AI chatbot and then trying to wrangle it into your application. I'm not also saying like to use a UI drag and drop tool, a no-code tool. And it's definitely not about building an app on top of a low-code platform that locks you in. With that, your code will be permanently living inside that tool, and you can never get it out. Why is PIES Studio different? It's next generation AI development platform. It blends no-code simplicity with low-code flexibility and gives you a pro-code control, all with AI deeply integrated in every step. What makes PIES Studio unique? It actually unifies the no-code tools like AI-powered prompting, visual configuration. They also allow you to use the low-code power, which allow you to build your custom logic and plugins. And it also gives you a intellectual property protection by using the Pro Code version where you can export your code. On top of that, it has post-build tools such as audit logs, instant previews, runtime visual debugging, and so on. I'll jump into this video. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use AI prompt to speed up the build of your application. Then how you can use the low code to build your custom plugins and how you can speed up the whole development of the application. And then I'll show you how you can instantly deploy this application. And also I'll show you how you can export your code, which is actually your IP. Let's dive in. So here's PIES Studio. So in PIES Studio, when you log into PIES Studio, you can see all your applications. And from here, you click on type in the application name you want to create. Then you select the workspace, or you can actually leave it empty if you don't have a workspace. And you can choose a private or a public app and share the public app with the open source community. In this particular instance, I'm creating a private application. And here, the first step of the application, we got to create our data model. An application without the data, it's not that great. So with the data model, what I'm doing here is I'm explaining to PIES AI the application I'm trying to create. In this particular instance, I'm trying to create a application that looks at a transaction, creates alerts based on if it's suspicious, and then if it is, it will assign it to a fraud team to investigate it further. So here I'm describing it, and I'm going to ask PIES AI to create the data model for me. On the left-hand side, you can see PIES Explorer. So basically, this is actually shows you what's inside your application. When we create the application, it gives you your system tables, it gives you a home page to log into, and so on. But from here, we can customize them, or we can just add to it. Here, PIES AI is replying back to me and saying, here's the detail I found for your data model. From here, I can interact back with PIES AI. I can ask for changes and so on, or I can just, if I'm happy with the data model as it is, I can just proceed and generate it, which I'm going to do in this particular instance. And also what I did here, created some sample data for me for the data model, so I can get straight into testing. Here I created click on generate database, and the database is generated that simple. So as you can see now, you have all your tables, and then you have all the relationships. So they're already built in, so I don't have to do anything. Unless I want to do changes, I can do changes. But if I'm happy with it, I can proceed to building my user interface or business logic. In this particular instance, I'm going to go ahead and build a landing dashboard. And that landing dashboard for a team lead. So I'm simply asking PIES AI to do that for me. And PIES AI will understand the business logic behind that dashboard, what it takes to build what the requirement to build a dashboard for a team lead for a fraud team. So here it's coming back with how my dashboard should be designed. Again, I can read what it's saying, and if I'm happy with it, I can proceed, or I can again interact back and forward until I'm happy to proceed. So he is building all the widgets for me inside that dashboard. So it's, I'll look at it. If I'm happy with it, I click. In this particular instance, instead of generating a new screen, I already have a home screen. So I'm going to add all these widgets that got created to my screen. And then I have my dashboard ready when it's done. So you can see it's an empty screen now. And when it will load all these widgets into the screen. And this is tried and ready to use. In this particular instant, I'm going to go ahead and do some changes so you can see kind of how things change. Everything within the screen design is drag and drop, configure, and so on. Here, I'm just rearranging some widgets around. So I'm moving all the charts up because it looks good straight under all the account cards. And I'm just moving the tables to the bottom of the screen, resizing it so it all fits in nicely. I got now my dashboard for the team leads ready. So now I'm going to proceed to the next step. So in this particular instance now, I got, you can see I have only one interface, one screen on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side. I'm switching between dark mode and light mode. So now, so here what I'm going to do is, I have one screen, but I'm going to use PIES AI as well to automate the whole build for all the CRUD operations behind all the tables that PIES AI created. So now you can see in a matter of few seconds, I have tens of screens already built in with tens of business logic, all the events that required to manage the operation for this application. And you can see this is the sample workflows. You can see some of the workflow that got created here and some of the screens. So now next step is I'm going to show you how we modify screens a bit further. So in here, from the dashboard, I'm going to create a button from that table, which lists all the alerts, all the suspicious transaction alerts. And I'm going to add to that table, I'm going to add a button that takes me to the actually detail of the alert. This is how simple it is. Some of the logic already got generated through the automation, which I can reuse. So as you can see, everything is reusable within the platform. When I used automate, some of the events got created, I'll reuse them somewhere else. I don't have to create everything again. So here on that table, I created a button to view the alert. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the alert screen, and I'm going to do some changes on the alert screen. Actually, view alert screen. So here on the left-hand side, the Explorer, you can filter from the top left-hand side, so you can go filter. You don't actually have to scroll up and down. So this is the automated screen that was created. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some extra visual element to that screen. You can see the alert detail. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a multiple tab. And again, you drag anything you select, any of the elements you select, you'll see a palette, and any of those palettes you can drag and drop within your element which you opened. Now I created a tab, multi-tab. Now I'm going to add the table, which is for the alert assignees. So each alert, there's multiple assignees that you can select. In the relationship previously I showed, the system creates relationships straight away for me. So instead of having to build logic later on, I can use the existing relationship. In this particular instance, I'm just going to drag the table of the alert assignees to here. And then I'm just going to link it back to the alert. And that's it. This is basically, and then add the fields that I want to see. And then basically I got that whole relationship. So when I preview or deploy it and I see the alert, I can see the assignees for the alert straight away there. And here's how I can select the elements of the table. I'm just adding a text. There's multiple type of elements you can select. I'm just adding a text here. And what you can see is all the elements within that table, which you can add to that, from that table, which you can add to this element, to the view. And then you can change the size. On the right-hand side, you can see all the configuration for the element you selected. So anything you select, you see the configuration for it straight on the right-hand side. There's nothing to guess. It's straight there for you. I'm just going to add here a drop-down list to a visual element drop-down list to the table, to the screen. And from there, I'm just going to add multiple options. In this particular instance, for every alert, I'm going to have an open and resolved option. So this is how you add it. It's pretty simple. Again, on the right-hand side, you can see a lot of things around the coordinates with, so it makes it really easy for you to know where to place things. So you don't only have to drag and drop. You can just, if you know what's your coordinate, you can easily add it there. And that will give you a perfect alignment. So now I got my the screen finish. Control S to save, or if you have a Mac, Command S to save, and you have all the menus on the top. You can, if you don't understand, if you don't know it, you can go and look it up and use it. So from here, the next step is, for this particular demo, I'm going to show you how we create custom widgets. In this particular instance, I want, if any of those status changes, I want the system to send an alert to a channel, to a Teams channel for that team, to see the alert ID and what changes on it. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask PIES AI to do that. You can write custom code yourself. You can research it. You can write it, but I can just ask PIES AI to do it. Again, I'm going to give as much information as I can. And because PIES AI already understand the context and understand what this application does, we already gave a lot of business logic and know the configuration of this application, and know the table structure, the screen. So it can give me a lot better outcome when I talk to it now. So here I'm saying create a code block that received alert ID, current status, new status, and send a message to a Teams channel. And when I finish, I hit enter, and it should give me a whole code block ready to use. So now the code for the custom widget for the code block is presented to me. Again, I can interact with PIES AI and ask it to change things and so on, or I can just hit create code block, and as I'm going to do now. So now this is the low-code part of the platform. You can see now the code block is going to get generated. I can modify it. I can just use it straight away. In this particular instance, I'm going to use it straight away. I know it works. I had a look at it. I know it works. I have all the input parameters. Like I asked, it got generated. They even gave me more input parameter that I needed that I actually did not know about, like things like channel ID, webhook. Yeah, so it gives us more flexibility. Now, the next step is I'm going to use that code block into the function. And the function, when I selected the function, I can see the code block on the right and on the left-hand side, drag and drop, add the values. I'm going to select the values. All parameters that I can use already present to me. So when I type in $, I can see all the parameters I can use. Straight away, it tells me what I can use. So I don't have to do a lot of guessing. Again, if I drag and drop any of those elements from the palette, drop onto the line, it does the connection for me straight away. So I don't have to try to connect things. So it does it straight away for me. So, and this is how we can modify the function. Now, this function update alert came in from the automate. So you can see how we don't have to use the functions as it is. We can modify it. Even the stuff that got created, we can modify it. Now, the next step is when I'm ready to build, I click on build. I select the language that I want to build the application in. We have default languages, but you can select any language. In this particular instance, I'm using MySQL for the database, Golang for the backend, and React with the Next.js framework for the front end. When I hit build, the application get compiled in real time. So we don't store any code apart from the custom code widgets you create. The system goes and compile all this application, and any error that you find, it presents in a human format for us. So on the right-hand side, you can see the debug icon, which you can select, which I will select, and I'll show you what type of, well, in this particular instance, there is no bugs. But if there is any bug, it will actually, it will show in those, in the bug section here. And again, we categorize it. So database related issues in one tab, interfaces, function, and so on. So everything get categorized. When you're ready, you can either package the code, you can download the code, or you can preview the application as I'm doing now. So when I hit preview, the application goes into, it will take all the, whatever got compiled, it Dockerizes it, creates a container out of each module. So front end goes into a container, back end goes into a container, and the database goes into a container unless you actually selected the existing database. When it's done, it gets pushed into a temporary server for you to preview, and then you can see the working app ready. So now here's the running application. You can see there's not a lot of data in it. So you can see the graphs not fully populated, but the more data you add to it, everything get populated automatically. You can see the real-time debugging. So when I deploy the app into a temporary server, I can see the debugging there. So I can select, I can see if there's any error, I can trace it to a function. So I don't have to do a lot of guessing. So there's no code to really to mess up. So you look at the business debugging, the debug of the business error, and then you can trace it back to a function, and then you can go back, fix it, and re-preview it. And this is how the application look in a preview mode, which looks exactly the same without the header, without the top header in production. When you finish, you end the preview, click on end, and then the preview is finished. You can go back to the application, modify it, or so on. In this particular instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, deploy the application, show you how simple to deploy. You go to hosting, you click on your request. You choose if it's a PIES cloud or self-hosted. If it says self-hosted, you'll get a container downloaded, which you can take and deploy anywhere you want. For faster deployment, you can just deploy it straight into PIES Cloud, where you already created host, which you can go through the admin panel. So after that, you can just deploy it into one of those servers you created. Or if you log into SaaS, we have already, when you subscribe, you get a development server which you can deploy it straight into. So again, when you deploy the application, it compiles it again to make sure you did not introduce any errors through that process. When it's ready, it gives you some detail. If you want to use an existing email server or you want to use the default one, type of authentication, because we have all the authentication built into the application we created. Again, we choose the server and then hit next and choose the user count. We're going to use the free tier here, and then up to 3 users, and then deploy it. And that's about it. So you activate the request, put the database password. And the reason we do that is because we want to give you a full security. Even our support team don't have access to those passwords. So that's why we actually ask you to add the password database that will give you a full security on your application that you created. So now when this is done, I will get an email with a link to the application and to set a password and so on to continue. I'm not going to show this part here in this demo because we will run out of time. The next step is I'm going to show the code export. Again, code export is pretty simple. You hit a new request. The code's now ready to export, and you hit download, and when it's done, you choose the language and the languages you need, and you download. And what's the code is straight downloaded as a zip file to your machine. And this is how the code looks like. So you got 3 folders, one for the database, one for the core, and one for the front end. Now, if you're creating an API, obviously you don't get the web. If you're creating a database, okay. So the database seems to be missing, but this is the code for the backend. So you can see the structure of the code. You get like the assets, connectors, controller services. You got the model. If you look at the model interfaces, this is basically links back directly to the functions you create, so you can connect it back to whatever you created using the platform. And the front end code is so this is for the Next.js. You can see the Next.js code structure. I'm not going to get into detail because it's a very long process. But I will produce a document, send it, put it online for you guys to see. And this is the front end code structure. And that's it for me. Thank you.
I can see a lot of questions coming in there about Simon's demo, so thank you for that. I'll get to them now. But just to briefly touch on next steps for you and AI. So, well, the first steps to take in bringing AI into your business, would be, what would be your ultimate goal? Is it to cut costs? Is it to cut admin time? To figure this out, maybe I would suggest to identify your pain points first in order to see where AI can fit. From there, ensure that your data is ready. As Stephen was saying earlier, is the data clean, accessible, and sufficient for AI applications? You need to have this all in place before integrating AI into your business. From there as well, to make sure that it is being utilized efficiently, you must educate your team and make sure that everybody understands where AI is going to fit into the business and how to use it. Upskill your staff in these AI tools, or bring in some experts if necessary, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And from there, once you have it in your business, it's easier to see where it can grow in your business as well. So, set clear KPIs to measure and monitor the success, and see where else it can fit. So, yeah, that would be next steps for you guys. But yeah, so on to the burning questions. I saw a few come in there during the demo and before that. So I'll try fit some in the last few minutes. But just to kick them off, I have a question for you, Stephen. Which is, what role will data quality and infrastructure play in determining the success of AI implementation?
That's a great question. So there's many ways to address it. Obviously, data quality is paramount. Data governance is key. Having a strong governance layer, a foundation to build on, is absolutely key. Continuously monitoring, updating your governance and governance policies is key. And also, I'll just mention two factors. One, you have to consider especially with generative AI, which many AI projects these days are embracing, adopting and pushing forward into the organization. Things like the criticality of the decision really matter. The latency really matters. So, if you need if it's a mission critical decision, that an inference that needs to be made, you need to look at your infrastructure, obviously. You need sufficient compute. You need to consider privacy aspects. So is it, some companies are fine, absolutely fine to send data into the cloud, into various, AI chatbots, etc. And that's fine for them, but many others can't. They're simply not allowed. So on-prem is the solution for that. Private AI is the solution. And then, of course, you need, like I said, sufficient compute. And to ensure that latency requirement is fulfilled. So, they're the key points. I would just say, to wrap up, having a data quality framework is paramount. One that really ensures that you are able to govern your data, both the access and the quality, and also the models. So it's not just the data governance, but it's the model governance as well. So really, things to keep in mind are around, the things that we know about, model drift and fairness and truthfulness, etc. The governance framework really needs to account for those aspects as well and accommodate for that. So great question. I hope that helps.
Great answer. Thank you so much. That really was very informative. So thank you. We have time for one more question. So I have one for you, Simon. It's a bit of a long one, but I'll get it out. Is PIES solely a SaaS platform, or do you support enterprise customers who require the platform, including the LLMs, to be deployed on-prem and behind their firewall?
That's a great question, Holly. Actually, with our platform, one part of it SaaS, but it's the bigger part of the enterprise. We actually allow enterprises to take the whole PI Studio, deploy it behind the firewall on their premise. It can be on the cloud, it can be on their computers in the data center. After that, they can deploy the application all inside their premise. Also, we actually support other LLMs, not only the ones we have, but we also support things like Llama or custom LLMs. That gives enterprises a lot of privacy around dealing with open LLMs, open AI or other LLMs. That's they don't want to get their data exposed to those LLMs, so they will keep it all internally.
Right, great. Okay, thank you. And maybe lastly, Wayne, one question for you. What specific challenges in software development motivated you to create an AI-first platform?
Really around the amount of time it was taking to achieve anything, all the rework, there's so many people when I'm talking about it, probably at the enterprise level, there's so many stakeholders. And this was really around it, one of the frustrating things, but also lack of reuse. I've worked in some big enterprises where, this is a simple example, but somebody's building a timesheet somewhere, and somewhere else in the same enterprise, somebody else is doing the same thing. So concept was really around whether you centralize it into a platform and then people have access to those applications, right? And that was what it was all about for me. That frustration of, the software development life cycle was just getting extremely costly and time consuming. And often by the time you'd finished a project, the business had changed. You're talking just a small project in an enterprise can take 6 months. Well, look what happened when COVID hit. 6 months down the track, you could be out of business.
Yeah.
That was a lot of the motivation around that, and increased productivity, and Steve gave a great example of enabling people to free themselves up to do higher things, more business focused things. So that's great question. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all the speakers and to everybody who came today. Really appreciate the support, but especially to our speakers. Thank you for your time and effort today. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you again soon on the next one.
I'd just like to thank you to everybody who's attended. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks.